In 1765, the British Parliament passed a bill named the Stamp Act, through which a tax has been imposed on official documents, newspapers, and magazines. And also on the condition that all the papers will be bought by paying British currency, not the currency used by the colonies. This act led to protests across the British colonies of North America and the inauguration of the Stamp Act Congress, or Continental Congress, which was a formal meeting between the British colonies in New York City to plan a response against the Stamp Act. With the growing resistance and rebellion, the Britishers repealed the Stamp Act, alleviating tensions briefly, but they flared again in 1767 with Parliament's passage of the Townshend Acts, a group of new taxes and regulations imposed on the 13 colonies. With these new taxes, the British want to gain more revenue from the colonies and pay salaries to judges and governors, so they remain loyal to Great Britain. The growing rebellion and violence, which was particularly severe in Massachusetts, forced King George III to deploy troops to Boston, leading to the Boston Massacre on March 5, 1770, in which 9 British soldiers shot several of a crowd of 300 or 400, who were harassing them verbally and throwing various projectiles. This severe violent incident forced the British government to repeal the Townshend Act as well, but retained its tax on tea in order to symbolically assert Parliament's right to tax the colonies. The 13 colonies responded assertively, first by burning the HMS Gaspee, which was a Royal Navy customs schooner that enforced the Navigation Acts around Newport, Rhode Island, in 1772. A group of men attacked, boarded, and burned the Gaspee to the waterline. The event sharply increased tensions between American colonists and Crown officials, particularly given that it had followed the Boston Massacre in 1770. Secondly, they launched Boston Tea Party in 1773, which was a political and mercantile protest against the occupiers, and the target was the Tea Act of May 10, 1773, which allowed the British East India Company to sell tea from China in American colonies without paying taxes, apart from those imposed by the Townshend Acts. The British responded with a series of punitive laws, or sometimes referred to as intolerable laws, which took away self-governance and rights that Massachusetts had enjoyed since its founding, triggering outrage and indignation in the 13 colonies. 12 of the 13 colonies in 1774 sent its delegates to Philadelphia, the colonial province of Georgia, which has not yet supported the revolutionary cause. The First Continental Congress was the beginning of effort in coordination against the British resistance. In the early 1775, the Britishers declared Massachusetts as the states of open defiance and rebellion, and sent an order of disarmament of the American patriot. In June 1775, the Second Continental Congress responded by authorizing formation of the Continental Army, and appointed George Washington as its commander-in-chief. The Second Continental Congress in July 1776 declared Philadelphia the Independence Hall and also announced King George III as a tyrant who trampled the colonists' rights as Englishmen. On July 2, 1776, the Congress passed the Lee Resolution, through which they formally declared themselves free and independent from the British. And these 13 colonies, which became the United States of America in modern days, this resolution was named after Richard Henry Lee of Virginia, who proposed the resolution to Congress. 2 days after the resolution on July 4, 1776, the Congress unanimously adopted the Declaration of Independence, dominated by Thomas Jefferson, which rejected monarchy and aristocracy and famously proclaimed that all men are equal. In a major setback to the unity of American patriots, the British captured New York City and its strategic harbor. The British held New York Harbor for the rest of the Revolutionary War, using it as a base for expeditions against other targets. Howe, who was the commander of the British Empire in this battle, landed unopposed on Staten Island in July 1776. With his military skill, he was successful in driving Washington out of New York City, but he didn't extend it to New Jersey and ended its campaign in January 1777, with only a few posts near New York City Harbor remaining under British control. In the same year, in the month of September, the British Army attacked the revolutionary capital of Philadelphia and forced the Continental Congress to move to Baltimore, from where they continued their deliberations. In a major significant game, the American Continental Army captured the British troops in Saratoga in October 1777, which is led by John Burgoyne. The British troops was trapped by the American, as they was waiting for the other contingent of troops who were marching from the northward of New York City but never arrived. Then France entered in the war, as an ally of the United States which secretly provide assistance to the Continental Army. With this entry, the table has been turned for Americans, as France was a military rival of England, and within days this conflict turned into a global conflict. The British Royal Navy blocked and held the New York and other cities, but was no way near to destroy Washington's forces. The Britishers shifted its focus towards the southern colonies, which consist of Maryland, Virginia and Carolina, wrongly guessing that large number of loyalists will provide support from these areas. The British wouldn't leave things like that and were willing to take back control of the United States. In this effort, they sent their famous military general, Charles Cornwallis, who, in the early 1780s, captured the rebellion army at Charleston, South Carolina, but was struggling to take effective control. As the combined French and Continental troops gave him a tough time. On September 28, 1781, this combined army attacked Yorktown, and within 22 days, the British Army surrendered on October 19, 1781. It was the last large land battle of the Revolutionary War in North America. This defeat led to the capture of Charles Cornwallis and his army. This Continental Army's victory prompted the British government to negotiate and put an end to the conflict. September 3, 1783, the day for which American colonies had been waiting for decades, the British government signed the Treaty of Paris, in which the British Empire accepted the independence of the 13 colonies. This treaty also set boundaries between British North America, which was later called Canada, and the United States. This treaty and the other peace treaties that supported the cause of American independence between Great Britain and other nations like Spain, France, and the Netherlands are called the Peace of Paris. Only Article 1 of the treaty acknowledges that all the states are free, sovereign, and independent. With this success, the United States is now working on its own, which was achieved through a collective effort of resistance, courage, and unity.